Hello, everybody, and welcome to an overview of marketing on Facebook and Instagram. Today, we're going to be utilizing the chapters from Essentials of Social Media Marketing, chapters 4 and 5 specifically. Today, I've pulled up here the two chapters as they are displayed on the internet here. And we're going to look at a couple of these sections as the primary means of reviewing these two chapters. So we will start with Facebook first. It's pretty cut and dry in terms of the first couple of sections. Um, Facebook is obviously the largest social network in the world, has been for a long time. There's a lot of numbers here that are in this chapter. Something to look at here in section 2 specifically are the demographic and education usage numbers for Facebook because these are important. While some of these don't really matter, in terms of the audience, top countries by audience size, that's nice, but for the purposes of this discussion, not really. Um, you know, I would say these are good targeting numbers in terms of developing your strategies when it comes to business plans and building out where you're going to actually meet your audience on social media. Now, as we look at Facebook's numbers specifically, people usually associate Facebook today as being popular with older generations, and that is true. However, their largest age group is still the 25 to 34-year-old market. Now, I will say they are a little bit more normally distributed in terms of age ranges here. And there are, strangely enough, a lot more male users for some reason um, on Facebook. But when we look at the general numbers, you see here, this is the top age group, and then it calms down from there. Um, it is a little surprising, I will say. I think people generally associate these later three age groups as being more heavy Facebook users. But these are the stats as they exist today. Um, However, the place where you would actually, see that these are pretty good numbers for Facebook or when you compare this to other social networks. If you look at Instagram, if you look at Twitter, and if you look at TikTok, especially TikTok, these numbers are not nearly as high. These are much greater for Facebook as they are compared to the others. So don't let this section here fool you in terms of the 25 to 34 year 25 to 34 age group. I was surprised to see that too the first time I saw it. But it is what it is. I think the big takeaway here is that the 25 to 34 age group is actually just the most active on social in general. Because we will see with Instagram, it's the same thing. 25 to 34 is the most common. Now, a couple other things to look at for Facebook. The time and the daily usage, I don't think is as important here. But a couple interesting things. Mobile usage is very high. I don't think that's a surprise. But I will say education and income, these are also where Facebook is set apart a little bit more. And you start to think of a persona, as we talked about last week, that is a little bit older. You have 73% of Facebook users are college educated internet users, or actually, let me rephrase that. 73% of college educated internet users use Facebook. Not the most important distinction in the world. It's very semantic, but most college educated internet users are on Facebook at some level. And then you have that 70% of Facebook users earn more than $75,000 a year. I believe that's the median. Is it the median? Um, there's a there was a study done many years ago that what is the where people were surveyed and they were asked, hey, what is the to you the income for you to be making that's like peak happiness. Not that, if you're making $1 million a year, sure, you might be kind of happy, but you might also be extremely busy. You might have a lot of pressure, a lot of stressors. You might be at a level that you're not comfortable with, public eye and everything. Where on the other side, on the other end of that, where you don't have any responsibilities and there's no stress, it might be really low paying. So it might be less, it might be, $30,000, $20,000 a year. And the number came out to be around $75,000 as like that middle of the range number. That's really just an aside here to say that most Facebook users are earning a pretty good income. And I would argue that this is actually probably a little flawed of a number. Income, again, the reason is I think you have a lot of people that are retired that are on Facebook, and I think the if you look at the demographics again, um these numbers, most I would say a lot of Facebook users that are in these age groups are likely to be making more money than anybody down here. So, not really a surprise if you look. Now, each chapter doesn't have, this isn't the same list for every chapter, but I will say, as one who did my own research on these, this is the most you're going to see. You're not going to see any other social network with these kinds of numbers. Um, this is a report from Sprout. You can look at this up yourself. Interesting enough, Hootsuite actually does a lot of data pulling like this on a pretty regular basis if you're interested in looking at any of these yourself. Um, but let's keep moving here. The setting up a Facebook page, not important in my space, my space, in my world here. I just don't think unless you're starting a business from the ground up, which maybe you are, then yes, this is important. But otherwise, every business already has a Facebook page. The optimization of a profile, that is important. It's good to make sure that your Facebook page is up to date and has all the right stuff, but not really the most important element in the world. I do look at Business Suite as being kind of important. This is a good thing to know just because not only is Facebook Business Suite good for advertising and managing your page, but also this is where you're going to run your Instagram ads. And that is a really important piece of information to know for Instagram advertising. For those of you who've never run ads on Facebook or Instagram before, this might be new, but knowing that Facebook and Instagram are both owned by Meta, the larger parent company, it made a lot more sense for them to roll up all of their advertising into one platform, which is the wide array of Facebook advertising abilities. We are going to talk about advertising here in a moment, but for now, that's the important thing to know here. If we jump down to the Facebook content strategy, this is another really important piece to know for building up a Facebook audience, for determining what you're going to post on Facebook, and these are all pretty important things. Um, these seem like pretty straightforward elements. Just make sure to establish a voice, to be authentic, and to have some brand behavior here. But really, it's not just that, but all of the other stuff that follows underneath. You have engagement strategies. How do you comment on other people's posts? Do you respond to people when they post on yours? That's important. I will get back to the posting at optimal times in a moment. Making the most of pinned posts. I know from my own experience, when you pin a post, which is easy to do on your page, that's going to get a lot more engagements than non-pinned posts. And you only get one pinned post at a time. So that's an important thing. Consider using emojis in Facebook posts. Those help. I myself don't know if I've seen these kinds of numbers, but it just goes to show you that emojis generally are going to be a little bit more friendly, and they're going to pop out a little bit more at individuals as they're scrolling through on their Facebook feed. A couple other quick things. Asking questions, very good on Facebook. Doing so is looking for engagements, looking for comments, and then utilizing stories and reels. This is actually something that recently I have started seeing to be really beneficial is that when you post a story um, first to Facebook, not sharing it from Instagram, but posting it specifically to Facebook, it's going to reach a very wide audience. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok are all in this battle for short form reels slash TikToky, the more vertical um, video forms right now. And I will say they're all going to try and deliver your content if created organically and uploaded originally to their platforms. They're going to deliver your content to a pretty nice audience. At least Facebook and Instagram will. I have done some significant testing on all four of those: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And while TikTok is still kind of the master of that in terms of views and engagement rate and all that, Facebook and Instagram are going to deliver your stories and are going to deliver your reels to a pretty big audience. Now, I will get to Instagram in a few minutes, but from what I have seen, the Facebook Reels are going to be kind of hard to miss, at least for your friends, for the people that follow your page, and that is a big difference from the days of where you would post a Facebook post and it would be seen by 5 to 8% of your following. So this is a big one for sure. Be sure to utilize the reels specifically. Stories are nice too, of course, but those are the only two types of content that will technically be available for every single follower of yours to see at some point on their feed. Um, Now, I do want to go back really quick to the posting at optimal times. I have harped on this in the past. I've harped on this in the chapter 3 overview. I do not at all subscribe to the idea of posting at a specific optimal time because, to give you a cliche, one size does not fit all. And for me, I mean, I have done a lot of testing, and I can tell you, sure, the business hours, this is gonna look the same for every single social network according to Sprout. TikTok and Instagram might be a little bit heavier over here in the PMs, um, and Twitter might be a little bit heavier right here, but essentially, business hours are always going to be the most popular. Um, I can tell you from the dozens of pages that I have managed over the years for Facebook, my experience is not exactly this. I have typically seen Facebook engagement rates being highest over here between 5 and 8 p.m. And I've also seen them being a lot higher on Saturdays in the mornings between 8 and 11 a.m. I don't know. Again, I think that might be an industry thing. That might be a timing thing. It could also be just the type of content that you post. Also, you should consider the fact of where you're located and where your audience is located. Because for me, I have worked with brands who have a large visitor base, large following base on the West Coast. I'm in Detroit. I'm 3 hours ahead. So how does that translate to this table from Sprout? I'm not really sure. Is it their local time? Is it whoever's posting? Also, you have to consider the global audience. I know that we don't that I mentioned earlier that the top countries by usage isn't that important, but if you think about it, if you have an audience that's anywhere outside of the United States, in Europe, in Asia, you're going to have to consider what that time difference does. And also, people over in the other parts of the world do not have the same media consumption habits as we do. In the United States, we are we are more well versed in consuming social media at work or at lunch, on our breaks, on our way home from work, on our way to work. That may not be the case in other parts of the world, and I don't have any evidence to back these claims up. I don't actually know what is the norm in other places, but I'm willing to bet that it's not the same as it is in the United States. So that is something to consider. I'm not going to talk anymore about posting at optimal times. I'm just going to leave it at this: that rather than just going with what the aggregated average time is, you should do your own testing and determine and make your own determinations as to when the best time to post on social media platforms are. So, um, we will. I will say this really quick. I do totally agree with what they talk about with Facebook Zero. And Facebook Zero is the idea that Facebook is um, decreasing and decreasing your page's organic reach because they want you to spend money on ads to reach your audience. Um, I don't know whether or not I agree with this anymore. I did. In the late 2010s, 2018, 2019, I saw this in droves. It was very hard, but it was very hard to really cut through the noise and to see my page's content be seen. But honestly, if there's one thing I've noticed recently, it's that I'm seeing less and less of my friends' posts and more of groups that are being posted, that are posting content. So, while yes, I mean, this is probably still happening, the easy way around this, um, not an easy way, but a way that something to consider is a way to utilize Facebook groups. Um, this is not mentioned, I don't think, in the Facebook chapter at all, besides the Facebook group assignment, which is not, not something we're going to dig into today. Um, However, the Facebook recently, a couple years ago, started really pushing groups because they wanted to see more private discussions. They wanted more authentic discussions in a discussion board forum. And that was not happening on Facebook. So if we turn around and look at groups, um, you can start one for your business, for your page. I'm not going to get into all the details today, but I will say that Facebook groups in general are going to see much higher engagement rates and much higher just usage rates than pages will at this day and age. It's not an easy thing to shift from a page to a group. That's not at all a thing. But it is something to consider when you might have a new campaign, when you might be creating some sort of committee or subgroup for an area of business. Something to think about. I've just done some preliminary testing myself on Facebook groups. I've seen really nice results. But it can be hard it's something where it's got to be the right time, the right moment, and the right audience as well. So, yes, Facebook Zero is certainly a part of this, but this was for me just kind of a nice way to dovetail into the idea of, hey, consider Facebook groups for if you can find a way to sneak it into your strategy down the line. So, um, I won't, I'll cut right to the chase here and move on to Instagram. Um, First off, um, Instagram by the numbers, they show a lot of the same numbers as before, not exactly, but take a look at what we talked about before with Facebook, look at income, age, education, things like that, so that you can better understand the audience that uses these social networks more than others. Additionally, like we're not going to go through the long setup of creating profiles. I think most are aware of this. Well, at least I would say, I don't think I have to go into sharp detail on this. Instagram business profiles are different from normal profiles. It's getting to the point where business profiles allow you to see some analytics that personal profiles do not. By default, the personal profile would only let you see data for a certain amount of time. I think it was 24 hours or 1 week or 30 days or something. It wasn't a long time for people that were creating these larger analytics reports on Instagram that were looking at years at a time. On Facebook, if you want to look at Facebook analytics, you can go back years and years and years and look at hundreds of numbers. You can look at comments, profile views. You can look at photo expands. When you look at an actual photo, you can look at people that have watched your videos for 3 seconds, people that have watched your videos for 10 seconds, people that have watched your videos for a minute. And then on Instagram, by default, on a personal page, there's very little, but on business, you can see many more numbers. And it was getting to the point where even influencers started turning their personal pages into business pages so that they could get more data on the people that were following them. And it was getting to the point where even high schoolers that had tens of thousands of followers would turn themselves into a business page, and then they could report this stuff out because they were, getting offers for influencer campaigns, and they also were able to see more who specifically was looking at their pages, which as a high schooler, obviously you probably want to know that. So um, just a quick overview of the business profile. Now, I'm going to hop right to the Instagram content strategy. um, Instagram Reels, this is one similar to Facebook where if you create a reel, you will likely see much higher engagement than if you just put a regular post up. And the reasoning behind this, and I will say, you do have to play the game a little bit. Um, I've done some testing on this both on my personal and my profession in the business profiles that I work with. And my thought process behind it is this: Instagram and Facebook want more usage of video. They want more usage of Reels specifically. As a result, they're going to deliver you better numbers so that you keep creating them. Now, how does Instagram show your random reel to a bunch of strangers? Well, the number one thing that they like to do is when people use an effect. A real effect is like when you have, for an example, let me see if there's an example here, like this. Oh, nope, not that. Let's see if there's one here. Those are stories. I guess there aren't any here. Um, okay. I will just explain it myself. An Instagram reel effect is when, say, you are creating a video like Gary Vee here, and then you turn on the effect and suddenly it shows your head as a taco, or it shows you what you would look like if you are bald, or it might show you in space. There's all sorts of this different augmented reality stuff that Reels can do for you. This is the same in with TikTok and with Facebook. But what Reels does is if you use one of the popular ones. So I used one a couple months ago. That actually it was probably 6 months ago. I did one that it was going to create your all-time um, NBA starting lineups, and so I used it and I posted it. And suddenly I started seeing other users who were doing the same thing. And they were people I'd never heard of. And it was like, oh, some of them are cool, some of them aren't. I didn't give many likes. But then I noticed random people started liking mine. And I sent some messages out and was like, hey, good to connect. Wondering how you stumbled upon my profile. And every single person would say, hey, we just saw this in our, in the Explore tab. And after talking to some other people and doing a couple more tests with some other reels, you should look at the one that shows, what year I'm supposed to die. It's not good. Uh, they were all people kept saying, and I kept seeing that if you use a popular effect, other people who have used that effect or have watched that effect are going to see it, and vice versa. So you end up with a lot more engagement. And if I look back at all of the Instagram photos, videos, carousels, stories, every type of content I've ever posted on Instagram, the two posts with the most likes of all in my personal life have come in the last 6 months. And it was because I was just messing around with real effects. And it's bizarre because I spent 20 seconds just in real time reacting to what this augmented reality was showing me. And I mean, I just kind of posted it for the fun of it the first time. After that, I started doing it more strategically to have this exact discussion. But it was very interesting to see. And I posted my last reel weeks ago, and I'm still getting likes on it from people that I've definitely never heard of. And it's not great. I mean, I'm at about 100 likes, and I don't do a ton. I don't have a ton of followers on Instagram. Um, but like I'm still getting likes and it wasn't great. Like again, it's just me looking at what the real what the AR is showing me. And I've started looking around at others, and I'm kind of getting the same thing. Um Now the one thing I will say about Instagram Reels and Facebook Reels compared to these others is that um it's also getting delivered to a ton of people. If I have 100 likes, chances are it's been seen by like 5,000 people. which is a really low engagement rate if you're trying to, develop an analytics report. And it's really nice in terms of impressions and views. Um, but it's kind of weird that that would happen um on these very like strange, I guess they're authentic, but they're very impersonal content. So just something to another thing, and I don't mean to go off on these tangents here, but when you think about an Instagram content strategy, uh, the reels are really where it's at right now. I'm not great engagement rates. You will get lots of impressions, but it is a way to kind of expand your reach. And again, the business application for this, I'm not really sure what that is. You do need to kind of think of it as at an individual level. Is this your CEO taking over the Instagram for a day? Is there somebody else taking over the Instagram for a day? It kind of is there a public figure as part of your business? It does require some legwork and getting creative with the strategy. So yeah, I mean, take advantage of augmented reality for sure. These other things I won't dig really into. Um, a lot of these are really good. Um, you know, regramming user generated content is great, which is just resharing user generated content on your own page. Engaging audiences is good. Don't overtly promote your product. Again, use emojis. Um, and experiencing with caption lengths is another thing. You've probably seen captions that might have a paragraph like this, or one that might be just a small sentence. Other times you'll see like a question and then a dot, 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 dot. And then that's like 10 line breaks and then a bunch of hashtags at the bottom, which is another big thing to work into your content strategy is the use of hashtags. But that's another thing is um, caption lengths will vary. And from what I have heard recently, the algorithm will show your content to more people if the people that are looking at it click on the show more piece on a um, on an actual image. I don't see any examples here where there's a show more, but um, anybody who has used Instagram will know what we're talking about. And kind of the challenge here is that a lot of these examples are not on phones. So those last couple were. Um, so yeah, I mean, content strategy, make sure to understand all of the Instagram content strategy recommendations. And again, the posting at optimal times thing, not necessary. Man, this video has gone long, so apologies, but I do want to discuss advertising for the first time. The way that I kind of approach this textbook is that rather than starting big and looking at larger social media strategies and trying to figure out, what are the goals and like starting big and getting smaller, in terms of how I approach it is I'm going to start with each of the channels. I'm going to talk about what each social network has in terms of advertising resources, then bring them all together at the end. And to start with Facebook and Instagram, the meta advertising world, that is the largest advertising world on social media. There are entire companies that exist to promote content on Facebook and Instagram and get them turning into sales or leads, and essentially making a profit off of it. There are businesses that you could go to that will pitch you and they will say, hey, we can promote your product. We'll advertise your product on Facebook. You give us a budget, whatever, $10,000 will be a starting point. And then they'll say, okay, you give us $10,000. We're going to give you $11,000 in return in revenue. That way they make it sound like you are making $1,000 of pure profit based on their campaigns. And these are people that have worked in social media advertising for years. They always follow the algorithms. They do tons of testing, and they exist to make companies money, but then also making money for themselves. because when they say we need a $10,000 budget, really $7,000 of that is actually being spent on the ads and 3,000 is for them. So that is kind of the idea behind this, is that um, I look at social media advertising in two ways. One is brand awareness, one and the other is revenue. And revenue is big time. Revenue is where these businesses work in the space, and it's largely B2C, of course. But hey, who hasn't seen an Instagram ad where they're like, "Oh man, I need that," and they go in and they quickly buy it instantly, kind of like I like to talk about in the ADA funnel, in that the micro buyer, the micro buying desire is high. The micro buying opportunity is high on social media. You can get people to stop the death scroll. They will stop, look at the product, and potentially buy it all in one fell swoop. So something to consider. And how do they do this? There's impressive targeting options. These targeting and ad options are almost identical to Facebook. So I'm going to just look at them on Instagram because this is where I am right now. You have location demographics, custom audiences, which is what you would upload a list of email addresses that you've already built. Maybe you get that through email marketing. Maybe you get that from you bought a list or something. Facebook will try to match up those emails with their own emails, because you have to enter your email to sign up for Facebook or Instagram. And then they will try to match those up and deliver them your ads. Sometimes these work, sometimes these don't. In my last professional life, I was working for a professional business organization. So we had work emails. So the custom audiences did not fly. I remember trying it a couple of times and I had like a 1% success rate in match rate. On the other hand, if you think you have some strong Gmails and Hotmails or whatever else people use for their personal email, you can give it a shot and see if it works. It's not going to be a guaranteed match. But if you can get a high hit there, there's a good chance that you can do pretty well and at least get a couple more brand interactions with that audience. Interests and behaviors, those are really big ones that a lot of businesses and advertisers will use. Behaviors are things like search volume, like what they search for, what are the websites that they visit. Interests are largely based on the accounts that people follow, the pages that they'll give likes to, the posts that they'll give likes to. Those are another big thing. And so they're not necessarily 100% indicative of what people's actual interests and behaviors are, but chances are that the audience has taken some sort of interest or made some sort of similar behavior recently when they are being delivered your ad. Now, the other thing I want to mention here is that the other powerful thing is that Instagram and Facebook can provide advertising in such a way that a lot of users do not realize it until it's too late, but that it's an ad. One piece is, if you look at these examples here, these are all ads. And sure, you can tell shop now, learn more are ads, but and yeah, there's a word sponsored there. But a lot of times the image that catches your eye can override your skepticism that comes up when you see the word sponsored or shop now. Same thing over here, over with the Bowie backpacks, which is just the Stukent brand. Ads in Explore, they're powerful. They're a little bit harder to tell apart. Same with the stories. That's what's over here on the left. It comes down to, on Instagram and on Facebook, that people know that they're going to be delivered ads. They're common, but the way that these advertisers have mastered the audience targeting and the content development is that they will likely be able to create an advertisement that is delivered to you and speaks to you in such a way that you are not only intrigued and, for me, kind of impressed, like, wow, that advertiser really got me, Um, but there's a high probability of you clicking through compared to advertising at any other point in history. If you go back to the Mad Men era of billboards and outdoor signage, there was no true way of knowing what advertisements were actually leading to purchases or even greater brand awareness. But here, using Instagram, using Facebook, and all these other social networks, you can tell immediately how your ads are doing in terms of getting people to your website, getting people to create an account, and getting people to eventually uh, make a purchase, become a customer, fill out a lead form, and become some sort of a client. This is um, a really impressive aspect of these social networks. Um, and honestly, the number one thing might be measurements, the way that you can actually look at the numbers. And that's if you go back up to marketing with Facebook, that is where advertising comes in because you can look at your data pretty much instantly. If I just go down here, this is what a Facebook/Instagram analytics page looks like, where you can look at your number of link clicks, how much you're spending per link click, how much spending total, and when it's happening, as well as who is doing it and what the ages are and what the genders are. So obviously, this ad was pushed towards women 35 and up. Um, you can also see where it happens. We won't go into details into what the audience network is, but there's a lot of things that you can look at in terms of ad performance, and then you can use those numbers to drive your decision making. I read a book last summer about a guy that has spent years working on getting Facebook pages to 1 million likes, and he will he'll spend money on advertising, spends a lot of money on advertising, and he says his goal is to get it down to 1 cent per link click. And the way that he does that is if he's at 14 cents, he's going to make one tweak to the ad. It might be in the language, it might be the image, it might be the call to action, and see if that helps decrease it. If it does, great, he'll let it keep running, but then he might make another tweak and see if that helps get it down even further. And he just keeps testing and testing and testing until his ad is getting the performance and the results that he wants. And to me, it's a very nuanced and measured approach, but at the same time, it gets results. I mean, this guy claims he has brought dozens of pages to 1 million followers on Facebook, which I mean, today it might not be that big of a deal anymore because you put an organic post out there and it's seen by 5%. But it's impressive to know that if you have a $10,000 budget and you can turn that $10,000 into legitimate profit. I mean, that's pretty impressive, and you can understand why businesses are so enamored with Facebook and Instagram advertising. And I know I didn't go through the whole walkthrough of how to create Facebook ads and how to create Instagram ads. I will do that later in the semester, I promise. I might try to do it later this week, but this is really more of a, what you need to know type of video for today. And again, I apologize. This video is way longer than I have ever expected it to be. But if you have made it this long, thank you for watching and listening. And I promise this will probably be the longest one that you see me put together, at least in the foreseeable future.